The tool had a name that sounded like a myth: God Mode. It was a secret administrative portal, a digital skeleton key that wasn't supposed to exist for anyone outside the reinforced, high-security walls of Twitter headquarters. It could bypass passwords, ignore two-factor authentication, and seize total control of any voice on the planet. But tonight, that power wasn't in San Francisco. It was glowing on a monitor in a dark, cluttered bedroom in Tampa, Florida. There were no alarms, no shattered glass, just a cursor hovering over the profile of the richest man in the world. With a single, silent click, the barrier between a bored teenager and Elon Musk evaporated. Then, Barack Obama fell. Then, Bill Gates. In a matter of minutes, the most influential identities on Earth were reduced to puppets, speaking the same desperate lie, begging the world for Bitcoin. The stock market shuddered. The FBI scrambled in blind panic, chasing a phantom that seemed to be everywhere at once. The world thought this was a state-sponsored cyber war, and sophisticated attack by a hostile nation. They were wrong. The person holding the world hostage wasn't a soldier. He was a 17-year-old kid who had simply talked his way in. And the most terrifying part of this story isn't the technology he used. It's how willing we were to believe him. To understand how the world fell apart that night, we have to look away from the screens and into a quiet, nondescript apartment complex in Tampa, Florida. Graham Ivan Clark was not a ghost in the machine. He was a creature of isolation. At age 10, his life was already fracturing. His parents divorced, moving him back and forth, eroding any sense of stability. Like many forgotten children of the digital age, Graham found that the physical world offered him nothing but disappointment, so he left it behind. He migrated his consciousness into the one place where a 10-year-old could be powerful: Minecraft. But Graham didn't play the game to build castles. He played to manipulate. He quickly realized that the game's economy was fragile, and the children playing it were gullible. He learned to scam, to charm, to lie. He would promise rare items, take the money, and vanish. It was his first lesson in a dark truth that would guide his entire life. You don't need to break the code if you can just break the person. As he grew older, the scams evolved. Minecraft was child's play. The real status lay in the underground marketplace of OG users. In this shadow economy, social standing wasn't measured by money or fame, but by the rarity of your username. A handle like @6 or @W or @dark was a digital crown. These short, unique usernames were impossible to register anymore. To own one was to prove you were an original gangster, an OG. People would pay thousands of dollars for them. People would kill for them. Graham became obsessed. He entered the forums under the alias Kirk, presenting himself not as a teenager, but as a wealthy, connected broker of digital identities. He began mastering the art of SIM-swapping, tricking telecom companies into transferring a victim's phone number to his own device. Once he had the number, he had the keys to their email, their crypto wallets, and their social media. By age 16, Graham was already sitting on a fortune of stolen Bitcoin. He had Ferraris he was too young to drive, and Rolexes he had nowhere to wear. He had conquered the forums. He was a king in a kingdom of text and pixels. But for a narcissist, enough is a concept that doesn't exist. The underground forums were too small for his ambition. He didn't just want to steal accounts one by one anymore. He looked up at the summit of the internet, at the platform that controlled the global conversation. He realized that stealing a user's identity was slow work. Why steal the keys to a house, he thought, when you could trick the landlord into giving you the master key to the entire city? He set his sights on Twitter, and he knew exactly who to target. Not the servers, not the firewalls. He targeted the employees. The attack did not begin with a line of malicious code. It began with a search bar on LinkedIn. Graham knew that Twitter's fortress had thick walls, but it was staffed by people working from home, distracted by the pandemic, separated from the physical security of their office. He scraped LinkedIn, identifying Twitter employees, specifically those in the customer support department. He didn't need the CEO's password. He just needed someone with access to the internal ticketing system. On July 15, 2020, the phone rang in the home office of a Twitter employee. The voice on the other end was calm, authoritative, and impatient. It claimed to be from Twitter's IT department. The stranger said there was an urgent issue with the employee's VPN connection. It was a standard help desk scam, the oldest trick in the book. But Graham was convincing. He created a fake login page that looked identical to the company's internal portal. The employee, trusting the voice, typed in their credentials. In that second, the keys to the castle were transmitted to Tampa. Graham was in. He slipped into the company's internal Slack channels. He was now a ghost wandering the hallways of Twitter. He scrolled through pinned messages, searching for manuals, for protocols, for the diagrams of the system. And then, he found it. The internal admin tool. The interface was simple, almost boring in its design. It had buttons that allowed an admin to update email addresses, reset passwords, and disable two-factor authentication for any user. It was designed for customer service, to help users who lost their accounts. In Graham's hands, it was a weapon of mass destruction. At first, he wasn't alone. He recruited two other hackers he knew from the underground forums, Mason Shepard in the UK and Nima Fazeli in Orlando. They acted as middlemen. They spent the early morning hours seizing rare OG username short handles like @dark, @v, and @drug, and selling them for thousands of dollars in Bitcoin. It was a lucrative heist. They were making a killing. But for Graham, selling usernames was moving too slow. The adrenaline was kicking in. He looked at the tool on his screen and realized the scope of what he could do. He cut his accomplices loose. He wanted the stage for himself. Around 2 p.m. Pacific time, the chaos began. Graham pivoted from usernames to influence. He targeted the cryptocurrency exchanges First Binance, Coinbase, Gemini. He hijacked their official accounts and tweeted a link to a Bitcoin wallet. It was clumsy, but effective. Then, he aimed higher. The first titan to fall was Elon Musk. Suddenly, the erratic billionaire was tweeting a promise to double any Bitcoin sent to his address. Then Bill Gates, then Jeff Bezos. The most cautious, security-obsessed men in the world were suddenly promoting a scam. Inside Twitter headquarters, the situation was catastrophic. Security engineers watched in horror as the accounts they were sworn to protect started acting on their own. They tried to reset the passwords, but Graham was faster. He was inside the system, watching their counter moves on Slack. He used another compromised employee account to get back in. He was playing whack-a-mole with the entire security team of a multi-billion-dollar corporation. When he took over the account of Barack Obama and Joe Biden, the panic shifted from financial to national security. The FBI was alerted. Was this a prelude to a fake declaration of war? Was a nuclear power manipulating the upcoming election? Twitter had no choice. They had to do something unprecedented. They pulled the plug. For the first time in history, Twitter blocked all verified accounts from tweeting. The blue checks, politicians, journalists, celebrities were silenced. The platform froze. The global town square was boarded up. Graham sat back in his chair. In just 4 hours, he had scammed the world out of $117,000 in Bitcoin, a trivial amount for the damage caused. But the money wasn't the point anymore. He had proven that the gods of the tech world were mortal. But in his arrogance, the 17-year-old made a fatal error. He was a master of manipulating people, but he was sloppy with his digital footprints. He had bragged. In the days leading up to the hack, he had boasted on Discord to his friends about his access. He had shared screenshots of the internal tool. He had used the same IP address he used to play Minecraft. He had linked his Bitcoin wallet, the one receiving the stolen Fundsto, an account where he had previously verified his real identity with a driver's license. The digital breadcrumbs were glowing neon bright. The FBI, the IRS, and the Secret Service were not looking for a phantom state actor. They were tracing a line that led straight to a condo in Florida. They were coming for the kid who thought he owned the world. Silence returned to the internet, but the clock was ticking in the real world. At 6 a.m. on July 31st, 2020, just 2 weeks after the bluebirds fell silent, the residents of a quiet Tampa apartment complex were woken by the heavy thud of boots and the screech of tires. It wasn't a diplomatic visit. It was a raid. Federal agents, the IRS, and local law enforcement swarmed the property. They had come prepared for a cyber terrorist. What they found was a 17-year-old boy, seemingly barely awake, living in a clutter of monitors and gaming gear. Graham Ivan Clark was led out in handcuffs. The god of Twitter was just a kid in a t-shirt. But the legal system did not see a child. They saw a threat. The investigation had moved at lightning speed because Graham had made it easy for them. The database of Discord chats, the Bitcoin transaction logs, the IP address at it was an open book. But now, a complex legal chess game began. Under federal law, charging a minor with such severe cybercrimes was complicated. The juvenile justice system aims to rehabilitate, not punish. But the prosecutors in Hillsborough County, Florida, had a different tool in their arsenal. They argued that the scale of the fraud, the theft of over $100,000, and the destabilization of global communication transcended his age. They decided to charge him as an adult. He faced 30 felony counts: organized fraud, communications fraud, identity theft. The numbers were staggering. If convicted on all counts and given the maximum sentence consecutively, Graham was looking at spending the rest of his life behind bars. The God mode had expired, and reality was crashing down with crushing weight. The court proceedings were surreal, held over Zoom due to the pandemic. On the screen, Graham looked even younger than 17. He didn't look like a mastermind. He looked like a high school student caught cheating on a test. But the prosecution painted a different picture. A calculating predator who had systematically targeted the weak points of human psychology. His defense team knew the evidence was overwhelming. There was no "it wasn't me" defense when the digital fingerprints were this clear. Their only strategy was mitigation. They played the age card. They argued that he was a brilliant but misguided youth, a product of a digital environment that rewarded toxicity. In March 2021, the deal was struck. Graham agreed to plead guilty to all 30 charges. In exchange, the state would cap his sentence. The youthful offender status in Florida allowed for a unique hybrid punishment. The judge looked at the young man on the screen. The verdict was delivered not with anger, but with a stern finality. 3 years in a maximum security juvenile prison, followed by 3 years of supervised probation. But the most painful part of the sentence wasn't the prison time. It was the condition of his release. For the digital native, for the boy who lived entirely online, the court imposed the ultimate exile. Upon release, he would be banned from using computers without supervision. His passwords would be monitored, his devices subject to search at any moment. Graham Ivan Clark, the boy who once controlled the voices of presidents and billionaires, was sentenced to silence. The cell door closed, but the shockwaves of that night in July are still rippling through the digital world. Twitter, now X, was forced to reckon with a humiliating truth. They had built a fortress against algorithms and brute force attacks, but they had left the back door unlocked for a smooth talker. The company overhauled its security, implementing physical hardware keys for employees, and reducing the number of people who could ever access God mode again. But the lesson of Graham Ivan Clark isn't about better passwords or stronger firewalls. It's about the fragility of our reality. For one night, a 17-year-old boy proved that the institutions we trust, the platforms that shape our news, our elections, and our economies are only as strong as the most tired, distracted employee working from home. He didn't hack a computer. He hacked human nature. Graham sits in a cell today, a young man whose teenage years have been deleted by the state. He is a cautionary tale for every script kiddie who thinks the internet is a game without consequences. But he is also a mirror for us. We live in a world where a single click can start a war, crash a market or destroy a reputation. We place our faith in blue checkmarks and verified badges, believing they represent truth. Graham showed us that truth is just a variable in a database, easily overwritten by anyone bold enough to ask for the keys. The God Mode button might be hidden now, buried under layers of new encryption and protocol. But somewhere, in another dark bedroom, another kid is watching, learning, and waiting. Because technology changes every day. But human nature? Human nature never patches its bugs.